Have you guys seen my scalpel anywhere? After that last surgery, I misplaced it. Yeah, you haven't seen it? Okay, all right, fine. Oh, hey there! Welcome back to the Personality Type Clinic. You might have heard about the 16 personality types in their unhealthy versions. So you might wonder to yourself, what does that mean? Am I unhealthy? So by the end of this video, you will know why people become unhealthy in their personality type, and you will know some of the signs to look out for each of the 16 personalities to see if they are actually, in fact, symptomatically, medically speaking, unhealthy. Before we get into it, this video is brought to you by supplements. Do they work? No one really knows, but I'm taking them. So here's a few reasons why people don't develop the right way when it comes to their personality type. And I'm approaching this with a bit of compassion because some of you watching might exhibit some unhealthiness when it comes to your type. I think we all do. It's all on a spectrum. You're not just unhealthy or healthy. It's like we're all on a pathway towards becoming the best versions of ourselves that we can be. So as I'm going through this is not to be like condemning people, and you'll see as I go through the reasons why people become unhealthy, a lot of it is like not the person's fault. And just to let you know, a lot of this is coming from Gifts Differing, the Myers-Briggs Personality Type book, which I highly recommend. I'll have a link to that down below. So first of all, a person's type is not going to develop properly if the environment that they're growing up in does not allow them to be themselves. Now, this is a trope that we all know, like culturally, of a kid who is growing up with parents who are very different from him or her, and the kid just can't express themselves fully because they're being held down. So when you put this in the lens of personality type, you think of, let's say, an INFP is growing up in a household where he or she is expected to be more of an ESTJ, that's not gonna be very good for them. And especially the rarer types in the world, you can check out my video up here about which types are the rarest. Whoa! The rarer the type is, the more likely it is that they might find themselves in an environment where they are not able to be themselves, or not allowed to be themselves, or maybe even just they feel like they shouldn't be themselves, like they're not gonna be able to fit in unless they pretend to be another type. Now look, I think it's good to get out of your comfort zone, right? But when you are chronically going against your type preferences, you are going to, on the one hand, be like totally exhausted because you're just pretending to be a different type all the time. And also, you're not gonna develop the natural strengths of your type. Then this leads to something else that makes the situation even worse, that can make you even more unhealthy. More unhealthier, you might even say. You get so unhealthy, you gotta use incorrect grammar. When you're in that situation, you might just start to naturally assume something's wrong with me. And I've seen this a lot over the course of my time on YouTube, where a lot of people who are, for example, INFJs, growing up in an environment that favors maybe more of the sensing thinking types, they're thinking to themselves, my personality type is the crappiest one. Mine is the most inferior one. Mine is like the most useless, stupid one. Or maybe even like, I am broken. Something is wrong with me because I am trying to be an ISTJ over here. Society wants me to be that, or my environment wants me to be that. I'm trying to be that, and I'm not good at it. I can't do it. And that, man, can really lead you to be burned out, frustrated, hating yourself, and not trusting yourself either. If you're in that situation where you're like, I am inferior, you're not gonna trust yourself, you're not gonna trust your own type, and because of that, you're never gonna develop your type. Okay, and this last reason, and then after that, we will talk about the 16 personality types and the signs that they're unhealthy. This last thing is big because this is like the reverse of everything we've talked about. Everything we talked about has something to do with you didn't really fully realize your own type, you weren't allowed to do your own thing, play to your natural strengths. This last one is you found your strengths, you played into them, you were your own type, and you stopped there. You just doubled down on whatever it is your type is. If you're an INTP in this situation, you just learned how to do the intuition thinking and you stopped there and you don't ever go to the sensing or the feeling. You're just like, that's it, I am a lopsided person, I'm all in on the NT. And the thing is, you can get pretty far on just your strengths, but the problem is that you will cause problems over time because you're just not paying attention to one whole half of life, you know, one whole half of your personality, because you've got it. You've got everything. You've got all four of those things. You've got thinking, feeling, sensing, and intuition. And if you're taking two of those off the board all the time, the S is gonna hit the F. You know what I mean? And maybe sometimes you don't even view them as problems, but everyone around you sees it. Everyone is like, that guy there, he's going all in on his logic and his thinking, and everyone hates him now because he doesn't know how to connect emotionally with people. So it's good to develop your type the way it is. If you are an NF type, develop the intuition and the feeling. Lean into that. You can't be like a stable person until you have solidified that preferred part of your personality type. But at some point you gotta be like, okay, I'm an NF type, I've gotta start leaning in a bit more to the ST. Not trying to be someone you're not. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you've already got a handle on who you are, what your personality type is, and now it's time to tackle the other half of the personality. In the next part of the video, we're gonna go through the 16 personalities. I'm gonna tell you what they're like when they're unhealthy, and it's not pretty. Are you gonna see yourself in these descriptions? I hope not, but maybe you will. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Here's part 2. We're gonna go through. Okay, the 16 personalities. What are you looking for if they are unhealthy? And like I mentioned before, you're really looking for all the weaknesses, none of the strengths, like in a purely unhealthy version of a type. You might be mostly healthy and still exhibit occasionally some of these things. I think in some ways we all do. Like even if you are a pretty well-rounded, well-adjusted person, you are generally healthy. Occasionally you can slip into this unhealthy side. We're only human, it happens. So when you are looking at someone who is like totally unhealthy all the time, this is sort of what they're like all the time. Starting off with the extroverted thinking types, the ESTJ and ENTJ, they will be going all in to that extroverted thinking, and that can make them just really tough to deal with. They are just gonna be like trying to bash everyone in over the head all the time with the logic. They're gonna be bossing everyone around. They're gonna be like not caring at all about the feelings of themselves or anyone else. They will basically just be focused on, how do I get something done? That's all I care about, and I'll leave everything in flames around me. You know, the healthy versions of an ESTJ and ENTJ, they're very nice people, very pleasant people. Yes, they are still driven to get stuff done. They can still be a bit bossy, but they're not gonna be that like scary version that the unhealthy one is. At least not all the time. Next, let's look at extroverted sensors. That's an interesting one. The ESFP and ESTP, in their unhealthiest state, they're not thinking about the future at all. They're just thinking about now. They're just thinking about what's the next thrill? What's the next physical experience I can have? And the problem here is that they're not thinking long term, and that leads them to do things that are risky and or illegal and or will get them and other people hurt. And that's at the extreme. And when they're at that extreme, that's all they're doing. They're just going from one thrill to the next in the present moment, not thinking too far ahead. It can lead to bad places. Healthy versions of those types will occasionally be like, yeah, man, let's do something crazy. But they will also be able to keep it in check, be like, you know, I gotta think about my future at least a little bit. Let's not drift off into crazy world. Extroverted feelers, the ENFJ and ESFJ, when they are in their unhealthy state, they are smothering. They will just constantly be smothering you with, you know, feeling. In a way, they're like martyring themselves for you all the time. Are you okay? They're like looking out for everyone else to the total detriment of themselves. But then they do this thing where they swing backwards and they're like, oh, all of you made me do this. You made me martyr myself for you. Oh, and then they become really selfish and they hate you. But the healthy versions of these types will look out for other people, will make sure everyone else is taken care of and is feeling good and happy, but they will also know how to keep it in check to a degree and to stop themselves from getting to that point where they just want to almost be like the ESTJ, ENTJ all the time, just like burn everything down. ISFJ and ISTJ, the introverted sensing types, and their most unhealthy version, they're just like not trying anything new. We're not trying nothing new. We've done it this way our whole lives. This is the way we're doing it forever. If you try to introduce anything new, they will think you are weird. You're a freak. They also don't want to think about the future. It is way too scary to think about the future because of all the possibilities of all the bad stuff that could happen and all the new stuff that's gonna change my thing that I've been doing for the last 20 years. Healthy versions of these types are cool. They can deal with some change. They're not gonna freak out over every little thing. They can think about the future. Unhealthy types, they can't. They are like inflexible. ENTP, ENFP, extroverted intuitives, dog. These types, these are the types when they are unhealthy. They're like the people who have so much potential and you're like, you could really do something with your life, but they're just like not doing nothing. They're just like smoking wacky tobacco in their parents' basement because they're just all the time in intuitive land, just thinking about, oh man, I could do this, I could do that. Here are all the possibilities of all of this really cool stuff, and I'm so imaginative and creative, and just not gonna do anything about it. Just gonna, you know, keep going with the flow, dude. When you get a healthier version of an ENFP or ENTP, they're able to then step out and start building something. They're able to take one step at a time, put one building block on top of the other, and actually make their thoughts, their imaginative ideas into realities. When they're unhealthy, they just don't do nothing. They're just like in their mind. INTP and ISTP, the introverted thinkers, oh man, when they are unhealthy, watch out, they might murder you. They just get so inside their own brain, their own thoughts, what they are doing, that's all they care about. Everyone else just get out of my way, I've got stuff to do, you're just an inconvenience. Your emotions are irrelevant to me, and actually they really bother me, and I just want to stop all of the emotions. I don't feel anything, you don't feel anything, no more emotions. Ugh. And they can really isolate themselves, and they can really become like resentful of everyone around them. When an INTP is healthy, they can be very friendly and outgoing and really engage a lot more in the world of feelings, even though they will default back to the thinking and doing their own thing. They can step out into the world and hang with the feelers. Unhealthy ones, just stay away from them for your own health and safety. INFP and ISFPs, the introverted feelers, have similar problems, except they're just getting so in their own feelings that they will spiral out of control. This is where the depressed INFP stereotype comes from, because especially the INFP, because they're intuitive, but ISFPs can also do this. They just like get depressed. Oh, the world is awful. I don't belong in the world. I will never be able to get along with others. I just don't fit in. And they could get really upset and angry with everyone else and feel like they just can't connect with anyone. These types, the IP types, especially the INFP, ISFP, when they get into their own mind, when the INFP and ISFP get into their own feelings, it is hard to pull them out from the outside. They're gonna have to do it themselves. That's why they can really spiral out of control and just be like these really severely depressed individuals that you're just like, could you please just come out of this? I just want to point out, I'm not talking about clinical depression, which could happen to any personality type. What I'm really talking about is the kind of self-inflicted sadness, a kind of funk that's brought about in large part because of self-isolation. And it's almost like a defense mechanism. Let me bathe in my negative emotions and keep everyone else away. That's really what I'm talking about. Healthy INFPs, ISFPs, they'll have all kinds of feelings, good feelings, bad feelings, but they will also realize, okay, I have to be able to connect with the outside world. I have to be able to get along with others. I have to be able to get something done with others, to work with others. They realize that my feelings aren't the ultimate thing in the world and that we all got to come together as a community. That the way I just summed that up sounded so dumb, but I think you know what I meant. And then the INFJ and INTJ, these types, the introverted intuitives, they also get very far in their own mind, and if they're unhealthy, they're very manipulative. They figure out what is going on. They figure out, here's the pattern at work here, and now let me just manipulate it so that I can get the emotional validation that I need, or even just so I can get ahead in life. The INFJs are going to be much more like, how can I manipulate other people's emotions to get what I want out of them? INTJ can be like, how can I just like game the system? It could be like, how can I manipulate others? But they're more like, what's the end goal I'm trying to get, and how do I get there? How do I game the system? When these types are healthy, they are much more collaborative and altruistic and all that, and supportive of others and looking out for everyone else. But when they are unhealthy, they are just looking out at everyone else as, things to be manipulated, puppets on their strings. Thanks for watching. Check out this other video here about what to do if your personality test is giving you like 50-50. You're not sure if you're a thinker, feeler, it feels so evenly split. This video gives you some insight into that. Or check out the whole playlist right here. Pick another video you want to watch. And until next time, stay cool and attractive.